Hey friends, welcome to the Rhythms for Life podcast, where each week we talk about resilient rhythms that help you take charge of your mental, spiritual, physical, and relational health. This season's conversations come from our best-selling book, The Fight for Us: Overcome What Divides to Build a Marriage That Thrives. So grab your copy, invite your friends, and let's build healthy relationships together. Welcome back. I'm Rebekah.
And I'm Gabe.
And what a week. Wow.
I know. This has been a fun week. Thanks to so many of you,
Yes.
I know, listening so faithfully to Rhythms for Life and just jumping in on the marriage conversation.
Yes. Thank you. We are so grateful. What a week. It's been such a sweet celebration, some tears, lots of prayers for marriages in our home, in our friend circles, and the people that even celebrated us that night.
A lot of prayer over this project. And I think our goal, which we're seeing take place this last week, is that we want marriage conversations to just become normative, that everybody understands it's a struggle. Let's just start there.
Yeah.
And that the only way we work through that is together and by having conversations. And so you made this book become number one in all marriage books worldwide.
Yes, thank you.
Number one in Christian marriage, number one in family conflict. Like it just rocketed up, which literally just starts a conversation for people, which was our goal, is let's get people talking again about how important marriage is.
Yes, absolutely. It's such a gift to feel like you are not alone and this is not the end of your story, right? To know that everyone has conflict. Everyone feels distant in their marriage in certain seasons. Everyone feels like they're missing each other or they're exhausted and they don't have any margin for one another.
Yeah.
And what happens is when you feel isolated and alone in that, you think you're the only one and your marriage is the one that's not going to make it.
Yeah, you get despairing.
Right. And so that's why, even on the topic we're going to talk about today, I nursed this like resignation and despair for almost a couple years in my brain, like just looping this discouragement and defeat that I didn't really even share with you yet.
No.
I didn't even have the courage to share it with friends. I would cry out to God, but it definitely was a loop in my brain that the enemy had entered in and got me to agree, like this is not going to get better. And that's so hopeless, right? And so our hope and our prayer with this book is that it would just give you some air, some breathing room to go, like, I need to say some things out loud. I need to get them out of my brain. I need to come to my spouse and be like, I feel lonely. I feel sad. I feel like I miss you as the person that I knew.
We'll talk about that today.
Yeah.
Just the power of that first vulnerable action, the first step that one of you can take. And if you're the one listening, it's you. It's not your spouse. But I want to encourage you, if you don't have the book yet, get the book. You'll get it quickly, I'm sure, from whatever your favorite retailer is. We know where most people like to buy books these days, but whatever your favorite retailer is. And then my favorite's the audiobook. I got to be honest, I'm a big audiobook guy.
Yes, you are.
So when I looked at the total read time, because you and I both went into the studio, we read it separately, different days. And I think I read probably 60% of the book. You read 40%. The opposite. I read 40%. You're reading about 60%. We divided it up to capture our voice throughout this project, which was important to us, that it was a mutual book where both the husband and the wife's voices and perspective is represented. But when you listen to it at 1.5, it's only 3 hours and 14 minutes.
There's Gabe's efficiency.
And that's what I like.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 hours?
I know.
For
you could do that.
Marriage help? That's not bad.
You could do that with your spouse on a quick road trip.
For $20, I mean, think about a counseling session.
I know. It's true.
They're expensive.
And then if you hear a couple topics, you're like, oh, we're going to need to replay that one. We're going to need to slow down the speed, make sure I'm understanding that one.
Or you're trying to get your husband to listen. Just fast forward like 30 seconds until you hear my voice, and then make them listen to that.
Right. Because the goal is not that you learn and then you live. And so we know that like transformation doesn't just happen in 3 hours, but it is catalytic though. It will set the stage. It will start and ignite and light that match.
And one other cool thing with the audiobook, because I ordered the audiobook, of course, and it comes with this PDF of the discussion questions, the conversations for couples. So even when you get the Audible book, you're still going to get this great PDF that you can print out.
I didn't even know that.
You can look at on your phone, and it gives you a guide of each chapter and the questions to ask. So I think that makes it work.
The conversations for couples at the end of each chapter is probably the biggest feedback we've gotten from people. It went through so many rounds of edits because we wanted those questions to be practical, accessible, not hard to answer, not that you're just like grasping for straws, and very specific questions. And I do think that they're going to allow you to be curious, which is what we're about to talk about today.
Yeah, these conversations that you have to have as couples to better understand, have better communication. This is the key and where we're going to go with the conversation today. But there's a few things I just want to remind you about. One is if you get the book, the publisher just extended this to where you can still get the masterclass. We did that for the pre-order, but there's been such a response to how helpful these 3 masterclass sessions were for couples that we want you to still have it, because our goal is to help your marriage however we can. If your best opportunity is your spouse is going to watch this, on a screen for a few minutes and it's going to get the conversation going, then do that. But whatever you do, go to RebekahLyons.com/marriage. And once you've gotten the book, you can claim that. You'll get access. We'll email it right to you, and that can start a conversation.
Yeah. And those 3 classes are why we fight, what we feel, and how we heal. So we try to distill this as best we can. Obviously, these are all tools and resources to help you in different formats, because we know God uses all means necessary for our healing. And I know Gabe and I need to hear things 7 different ways, 7 different times for it to really sink in. And so we wanted to give you all the options so that you could find healing in your marriage.
And you can get the quiz to understand your dysfunctional dance. Thousands of you have taken this to get some good understanding about what's happening with the fight that we have, that we tend to come back to. So RebekahLyons.com/quiz to take that. And then we're announcing today a retreat, which Rebekah and I have been doing retreats for several years. And our next one's in November. So you still got some time to plan for it, but it's here in Franklin, November 20th and 21st. It's the Thursday, Friday before Thanksgiving week. It's always such a fun time and festive time here in Franklin. But it's going to be that opportunity for, it's limited to really just 50 couples. So it'll probably sell out. But if you want to come invest a couple days where you go, okay, I love this conversation. I'm learning. We're having some good conversations, but we need to go deeper over 2 days of just concentrated time working through our marriage. This is going to be a great retreat for you. So go to RebekahLyons.com/retreat. You can learn all about it. We're going to have a couple great guests with us, the Bethkes, who are also going to be part of this podcast series soon. You're going to hear from them, Josh and Christy Straub, and probably some other special guests are going to be a part of that awesome marriage retreat.
Yeah, and if you have started reading The Fight for Us, you'll know that we talk about these retreats. And so much of even the research for the last 5 years has gone into these intensives and retreats where we have walked hundreds of couples through this transformation. And it's been a journey for us. We have learned so much through this high intensity feedback of where people get stuck, where we get stuck, how we don't communicate well, where does resentment begin to grow. These are all tools that are going to be talked about in this retreat once again this year. So we highly encourage you to grab a spot while you can. It's already started to sell, and it's a limited number, like Gabe said. So grab a ticket if you're interested.
Yeah. So today I want to get into this topic here to kick off this week for couples who are still on this journey. And it's about communication and the communication mistakes that couples make. We hear a lot in the marriage world of, hey, if you're good at communication, you'll have a better marriage. Yeah. And of course that's true. We miss each other so much by the phrases we say, the words we use, the tone that comes out. You and I talk a lot about tone. I get in trouble so much for my directness. It's not even like tone, like I raise my voice. It's more like I'm just very direct, bottom line. And Rebekah doesn't do well with that style of communication.
Yeah, especially, you do it on text, and that's one thing. But then
how do you do it on text?
You do.
Is there a tone on text?
Well, see, here's the thing. Women, we don't mind emojis. We kind of like a little smile.
Goodness.
But I'm not saying you have to, but I don't know. I like things a little softer, and I'm sorry. And I'm not your employee. I'm your spouse. So, it is interesting kind of what we value in the way we communicate, and the way the brain processes information is that we sense before we make sense of what we sense. Kurt Thompson has talked about that on this podcast. And so if we process information bottom to top of the brain and then right to left, that right side of the brain is all about our sensory, what we see and feel and taste and touch. It's not so much of us making sense yet of what you're saying. So you might be saying a totally normal phrase, but if you feel like there's an edge to it, or there's an irritation below that, women are acutely gifted at discerning, what is this person really saying? Yeah. It's not just the words coming out of their mouth, but there's something loaded or attached to that.
I know, and so many times as a guy, who's trying to be direct, or I'm used to, being at work, leading, making decisions, decisiveness, clarity, as few words as possible. Those kinds of things tend to work pretty well in that environment, but in our marriage, they don't.
Yeah.
And that's what happens is we tend to just bring our practices into the home and expect that they're going to work. and they don't work. And so I know I've had to learn how to talk a little slower, how to be a little softer, as you said, in how we talk about issues and items and areas of concern, even picking the moments to communicate about certain things. I think that's something you and I've gotten really good at. Like we don't have intense conversations in the evening.
Yeah.
Because physically we know our cortisol levels go up. Like we're not going to sleep well if our cortisol is loading because we're feeling fight or flight or defensiveness or, we got to debate something.
Or even just a stressful topic in general, right? Like we don't really have good problem-solving skills when it's the end of the day and we're tired.
Yeah.
We're not trying to, charge up a hill. I think it's like knowing when to say things and how to say things. And we would love to, we have learned a lot and we're still learning that. So today we're going to just talk about what are the number one communication mistakes that couples make. There's a lot of them, but I would say the number one is the phrase or the words "you always" or "you never." We did not realize how much we exaggerated when we fought.
Yeah.
Years ago, I would be like, "You always do this," or "This is what you do," and it's our counselor was saying this is kind of like character assassination, where we're just basically saying, now that you do this, I'm going to condemn you for it. And I'm going to be like, this is who you are. Like, you always dismiss me. You always interrupt me. You're always hurrying me. And it's like, always, always, always is like, well, how is he supposed to respond to that? Gabe's like, well, good grief. Like, I can't do anything right.
Yeah, you're going to be defensive. I mean, your instant reaction is to defend. It's to fight. It's to argue. It's to win.
Yeah.
And that's the cycle I think a lot of us get into in communication is we want to be right. Like, who wants to be wrong? I mean, so when we have a debate or a conflict, we quickly move into this mode of, I got to win. And in marriage, guess what? You might win, but you lost.
Yeah. You won the battle, but you lost the war.
Yeah. Like, if you want to win in marriage, this is going to become not about making the case for your point of view. It's going to be about mutual understanding.
Yeah.
And that's what one of our counselors really helped us with is hey, communication is good in a marriage, but what's going to keep your marriage together is mutual understanding. And that's going to take some work. It's going to take asking better questions. It's going to take being curious. And I think what we've learned, the key here to solve this mistake for couples is not to express judgment every time a conflict comes up or there's a disagreement. It's actually to turn to a posture of curiosity.
Yeah. Yeah. So instead of, and it has to begin with vulnerability and safety to go, if we are curious, are we going to reject what they're, if we're going to be curious and ask questions, are we still going to reject their answer? So partly, I think a way to approach vulnerability instead of "you always" or "you never," is to start with our own, start with "I am" statements, not "you" statements, because a "you" statement isn't vulnerability. It still comes out as judgment or accusation. Because you do this, Gabe, this is why I feel sad. It's kind of good. So a better way to do that or to disarm that is to say, hey, I don't think this was your intention. I'm not saying it was your intention, but when you said XYZ, I felt whatever that negative emotion is. So we even do some reels like this on Instagram, like what he said and what she heard, right? Or what she said and what he heard, because everything that we're hearing is through this filter of wounding, defensiveness, reaction. And so that's hurt, right? So that's why so often we need this third party of counseling or someone, that's often why we go to counseling, literally just to have someone listen to us and somehow try to translate to both of us what the other person said.
Our favorite counseling sessions, we have a counselor that asks us questions. We each tell, it's usually because we've had some conflict. We feel like we're stuck. Yeah. And this is a lot of couples. You feel stuck. And we want to encourage you today, if you're stuck, you have got to go outside of yourself to get help. It can be it can be just friends. We've done that before. It could be a counselor. It could be just a trusted guide who's been further along. And when you go for that counsel, this counselor for us would literally just write down everything we said and then repeat it back to us. And that allowed us to hear it again and hear maybe how dumb, selfish, silly I sounded with the thing I was so bothered by.
Yeah.
Or you'd hear it back and the same thing. I could hear Rebekah's perspective differently through that lens.
Yeah.
Just by having some outside person be a part of the equation.
Yeah. And it's funny because if he truly documented what we said and then repeated it back, I would be like, I didn't hear Gabe say that. He's like, that's exactly right. and Gabe didn't hear me say that, because it's when you hear somebody else say it, you're now no longer, your ego defenses are down. You're a little more receptive to reality. And this whole idea with conflict in general is it's like my version of what happened, Gabe's version is what happened, but then this objective reality. There's three versions. And so this counselor or this third party or this friend is able to diffuse that and go, no, here's what's real. You're both missing each other because the wounding or the hurt is so high that the defensiveness can't allow you. Like, your brain has gone offline. The shame response is triggered right now. You're not able to truly listen. And if you've got to be heard to be healed, there's a connection. When I felt like Gabe started to really go like, I'm not going to react. I'm not going to interrupt. I'm not going to try to finish her sentence and solve her problem. I just want to like let myself calm down and hear her. Then all of a sudden, for me, that felt like a very loving act.
Yeah.
And for you, you probably wouldn't have thought like, this is the best way I can love Rebekah. Might be like, the way I can love Rebekah is buy her flowers or help with the kids. And those are loving acts. But something about a woman feeling like she can complete a thought and she can say something from her heart without her husband having to solve it or fix
it's so hard for us, though. Rhythms for Life is part of the Think Media podcast network, and the world of Think is designed to help all of us think better and create conversations that lead to wisdom. So if you're encouraged or you're challenged by some of what you're hearing today and you want to go deeper into this topic of marriage and relationships, please check out our Let's Talk Relationships series. This collection features 6 talks from the Think Library and includes a conversation guide you can use to think well about the topic of healthy relationships. You'll learn from leading experts like John Townsend, Preston Perry, and Tony Newhoff on how to nurture thriving relationships and avoid toxic traps. Rebekah and I will be sharing themes from our new book, The Fight for Us, and you can sign up today for a donation of any amount. And that donation fuels the Think movement. So I encourage you, gather your family, your friends, your small group, and lead the conversation. Together, you'll learn how to discern, prioritize, and grow greater connection with all the people in your life. So go to thinkmedia.com/let's talk or check the show notes below to get direct access to the Let's Talk Relationship series. I don't want to see you sad. I don't want to see you perplexed by some issue relationally maybe that you've experienced.
Or even crying over something.
Yeah, your crying makes me uncomfortable because I don't really cry that much, right? And I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I don't feel some of those same feelings.
Yeah.
I want you to have resolve so that you can move forward with the day, whatever's taking place. And so I think husbands are so meaning well to quickly jump in and solve, but it took a while for me to understand that's not how I relate and connect and understand you. And I think me learning that and then being able to start practicing more empathy, understanding you're not trying to get your problem solved, that's a hard one. I think I have to remind myself of that all the time. It never just completely sticks, if I'm being honest. I just have to remind myself, I need to just listen. I need to slow down.
Yeah. So I've just said what means a lot to me in communication. Gabe, what means a lot to you, and what do you think means a lot to husbands for their wife to do for them in the middle of communicating something that's hard?
Well, I think first thing that you've done really well is when you communicate to me lovingly, like sometimes it can come out like it's all loving, but sometimes it's intense.
Yeah.
And I think the intensity, the same with you have a problem with my tone of directness. The intensity of emotion connected to something that we're just talking about is a little scary.
Yeah.
And so I think for women to relax a little bit, take a deep breath and have a conversation about what they're feeling or experiencing. And doing that on the heels of hopefully some affirmation and encouragement of their husband. I think a lot of men walk around feeling defeated, feeling like they're doing everything they know how to do to relate to their spouse, to help their spouse, to show up in the ways that they do in their family as a provider, protector. They're thinking about that all the time. And I think sometimes they don't want to say to you, hey, I need to hear that from you, because that feels weak. But when you actually just offer that encouragement, hey, I notice you, I see you doing this, I see the way you did this, read books with our child tonight, or I see the way that you've worked hard on this project, and I admire that. Because I know wives think that, but taking the time to say it is the biggest thing you and I've learned. Is like we have to say these things out loud. I have to affirm you and your gifts. And And when I say it out loud, it gives you a different experience of feeling seen. And that's ultimately what we each need.
Yeah. So before we close today, I think that's a good action item for anyone listening with their spouse is I always talk about as a writer, like our job is to notice and name. Like good writers remember, they write things down, they journal, they just pay attention. And it's kind of been a challenge for me over the years of writing, and Gabe's been writing as well, that we can pay attention to the topics that we're writing about because we care about them. I'm looking for everything around rhythms or everything about resilience or everything about mental health. But when I started really looking at everything around marriage, especially in the last few years of dreaming or even imagining a writing at this, we just started noticing a lot. Good things too, but I just realized how much we noticed with each other, but we didn't always name. And so that's our challenge for you guys this week to notice something that the other person's doing that you really do appreciate and admire. And it might be just an olive branch. Maybe like you can find one thing right now because you guys are really struggling, but find that one thing that is honorable that you want to call out and say it, recognize it and say it over your spouse. You have no idea like what that could do to kind of help you turn toward one another. Because I agree. Like when I started to say, I admire you, like in a counseling session a year ago, right before we began to write this book, I started crying because I was
I
like,
had tears too. Because I'm like, you've said it, but it just hits. It hits for a guy in a way that we need it.
Yeah. Just to go, wow.
Right now I'm crying because you said it.
I see a little tear. I see a little welling. But it's true. Like when we go to those primal places and say those deeper things and be like, no, I admire you. I mean, we jumped together. We took the leap. We said the vows. Like I knew this was going to be a wild ride. It's scary. We don't always agree, but in the end, like I want to do this with you. And so finding some form of like a peaceful way to approach one another. You're still the same good-willed people that you married. You just have lost each other along the way. And there's been maybe a dulling or a drift and a silencing. So maybe begin this week by noticing and naming over each other. And for the guy, whatever that looks like, and then for the woman, it's equally valuable to me when Gabe notices something that I don't even always recognize I'm doing, but just to cherish me in that way by calling that out.
Yeah. Well, I hope you've been encouraged by just a few tips, a few things that you've heard today that Rebekah and I are learning about communication, some of those mistakes that we've made, but the things we're learning. And the fight for us, every chapter engages some of those topics, whether it's related to parenting, sex, career, community. A lot of these topics we try to apply. What does good communication look like there? And what's the perspective each of you tend to come into those situations with that create some of the disconnects? And let's just keep getting better at it. It takes practice. I don't think I'll ever be done practicing. I don't think I'll ever master it, but that's okay. And I hope couples are encouraged. Like it's just work, and it's okay. Like that's what a relationship's like that continues to grow and heal, and also deal with new stressors in your life. So I hope you're enjoying this series. I want to invite you to go back, leave a review of this series as you're listening to it. Share it with friends. If you're in a small group at a church or there's other couples or younger couples that you've experienced life with, or they would be encouraged, or maybe that they're stuck, we've created this 7-week series specifically to help you renew your marriage in a concise way. We know everybody doesn't have time to sit down and read every book or get through every chapter, but hopefully this series where every week Rebekah and I are sharing, and then coming up, our next episode, we'll sit down with a couple, Tim and Elizabeth Hasselbeck, and we'll get into their story and the journey that they've been on as parents, as coaches of teams, how they've dealt with 2 careers, how they've navigated not only their own family and children, but being those who coach other children. He's a coach for football, and what he's learning about adolescence these days and the tensions, how we can do better as couples in our marriages. But we're just trying to encourage you and let you know that it's normal to fight for your marriage. It needs to become normal. Yeah. It's a fight, and we're in it together.
I hope this is encouraging to notice and name. If you haven't grabbed the book, go ahead and grab a copy. If you have and you've been reading, leave us a review on Amazon. That is helpful for people who are going to look for the book and they see that other people are enjoying the book. Any little bit of just cheer around the book we are so grateful. And we hope and pray that this continues to transform everyone who engages this.